You've reached the CEO Hotline. This is Crystal Jiggerup, business mentor, visibility strategist, community builder, and your new favorite person to have on speed dial. Because you and I both know you are done playing small. This line is for wildly ambitious women founders who are ready to stop winging it and start running their business like a true CEO. We're talking raw, unfiltered strategy, real case studies, and some seriously ceiling-shattering powerhouse CEOs dropping in on the line. So stay on, because this call, it's about to change your business. Don't hang up.
Welcome back to another episode of the CEO Hotline. And this is another episode where we bring on another powerhouse CEO on the line. And I cannot wait for you to meet our guest today. We have the fabulous Kandi Lee, who is the business surgeon for legacy-led women who want to profit-proof their business, aka any woman in business ever. We need this. She diagnoses what others miss by going inside a business and identifying what's hemorrhaging before the owner knows they're even bleeding, and then rebuilds it to become profit-proof. Her authority was earned the long way. Kandi was introduced to personal development in 1994 and found the work she was absolutely made for. And for 10 years, she trains corporate sales teams, volunteered as a coach, mastering the craft before she ever charged $1. In 2004, she founded the 111 Network with literally $1.11 in her account.
Girl.
Mission, building businesses for legacy-led women that create real wealth without burning the women down to build them. More than 3 decades in, she's coached over 150,000 people and generated $250 million in client results, a method that is held across every niche, every stage, and every size of business. She's been trained by some of the greatest coaches alive before the world knew their names, like Bob Proctor, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, and she didn't just learn from them. She carried what they taught into every room since. Through the cash flow compass, Kandi and her team redesign how a founder thinks, sells, and profits across 4 directions: internal GPS, the mindset that steers every decision, heartbeats, and the sales engine that pumps new money in. Scoreboard for productivity and profit, so effort actually converts. Clone, the automation that lets the business run without her hands on it. Lock all 4 and the business becomes profit-proof. So no matter what life throws at her, a legacy-led woman's legacy still stands.
So, my God, I'm like, yes, girl, I love it.
I love it when people get hyped up by their own bios.
It's like, oh my God, this is so cool. I love it.
You did that. You did
I
that.
know. It's like, who are we talking about? Oh yeah, that's me. Okay.
Okay, so that is listening. If you thought that bio was powerful, you are in a treat for this conversation, because me and Kandi, we've had some conversation before, so we can prep it and make the juiciest, most impactful conversation we can for you. And I cannot wait for you to hear her story. I cannot wait to learn more about your story, Kandi. So let's dive in. But before we start with all of the interviewing, was there any other quick things that you want to add to your bio before we jump in?
No, girl, I think you did a great job. Thank you so much for taking the time to read it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much goodness in it. And what's fabulous about you is all of the things that we're about to jump into, but also that you do have these decades of experience in the game that we really get to tap on this episode, where you've seen so much evolution. Like, you've been through it. You know, like,
yes, girl, I have.
What it looks like and what it's like for it to all crumble and what it's like to rebuild. So let's talk about that. I was looking at, first of all, celebrating you for 22 years in business.
Crazy. I still remember the first year, like I had my resume on the ready. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fail. Like, it's still real. So I like blinked and it's 22 years. Like, it's crazy.
So what did you do to celebrate, first of all? Because I'm going to continue celebrating that with you. That's a huge milestone. Congratulations.
Well, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but Caitlin and I, my business partner, who's also fabulous and amazing, and my daughter, decided we wanted to do something like super fun. So we created a trending video, and it got like 3,000 views, and getting the confetti pop thing and then the balloons actually took longer than for us to shoot it. We're just like, we want to do something fun. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to do like a cake and no, we just wanted to have fun. Like, we're in the middle of creating a whole bunch of things behind the scenes. So we're like that crazy cat video, right behind the scenes. So we're like, we want to do something fun. And Caitlin is actually going to Hawaii with my mom for her birthday coming up. So we just had fun, honestly. We just had fun.
It's so funny how we tend to like spend so much time like just putting the thing together,
Oh.
but the whole thing itself is like 5 minutes long.
Yeah, it was like, okay, we're going to shoot it. We got the right audio and all the things, and it was perfect. So yeah, it's like, yes, it can be easy. That's a good lesson. It can be simple and it can be easy.
So, okay, let's take that into the business aspect because I feel like there are definitely parts of your story that were simple and easy, but I like to break that down on our episodes of what did it actually take to get that success? Because yes, we can talk shiny numbers all day. Yes, we can talk about all of your accolades and how amazing you are, but what did it actually take to get there? What did your look like? How did you make those first few sales? Looking back at your Instagram, and I'm going to make sure I tag that in the show notes below so all of you guys can go follow Kandi. But you had on your highlights a recap of your 20 years in business. This is when you were celebrating your 20-year anniversary. And you also just shared with me previously of how you hit 6 figures in 1 year.
Yep.
After having done all of this work, like supporting other amazing companies and people, and then not really having that experience in your own business, but you did it, you took the leap, and you started seeing traction really fast.
Yes.
So hit 6 figures in 1 year, hit 7 figures in year 4. And I think if I'm recalling correct me if I'm wrong, you hit 10 clients at 10K months within the first 2 years.
Yeah. We had 10K like the second or third month.
Okay, 10, right. I think I misstated that. 10 clients at 10K retainer, monthly retainer.
Yep.
So how?
You're like, what is happening? Okay,
I've seen these posts on threads of like, why are you doing 100 pieces at like $100 when you can just do 10 at 10K? And like, okay, yeah, easier said than done. So bring it down to us. How did you actually do that?
Okay.
I want to take a pause and ask you a really quick question. Are you still building your business in isolation? Listen, you do not have to do that anymore, okay? I built Horolo, our women's entrepreneurial community, because I knew I didn't want to go into business alone, and I'm tired of seeing other women entrepreneurs still building their business alone. This is a community based on real connection, real resource sharing, and a network of women who actually want to see you win. We're not just here for the superficial follows online and the surface level conversations. We have virtual workshops, mastermind calls, a members only platform, and we also host in-person events here in the Bay Area, and we're continuing to expand across the US every month. If you're ready to stop building solo and start surrounding yourself with people who get it, then join us at horolo.com/apply. That's HERROLO.com/apply. That link is also going to be in the show notes. Okay, let's get back into it.
So let's start at the beginning. Obviously, I had 10 years of experience before I even started 111. And I had that fire in my soul, and your audience can probably relate to that. If you know you're meant for more, that fire isn't getting less. It's actually getting hotter and more. So finally, I reached the point where, okay, I'm done with corporate coaching. I'm done making other people money. So I started 111 with $1.11. My goal was 6 figures because I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. And why not? But I also knew that the money follows the math. So you have to have the math on your side. And what I mean by that is, especially in the beginning, I joined the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce. I think there was about 1,200 or 1,300 people in their directory. In my first week, I made 100 calls a day, every day, until I got to $10,000 a month. Because I knew that there is a magic formula in sales, 16, 4, and 1. So if you want one client, you need to have 16 potential. It's just the math. So I knew if I talked to enough people, probably 80% of them weren't going to be my client, but that wasn't the point. I was launching the brand. So I didn't sit around and think about it. I got busy. I got into activity. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people can take from this conversation is, what are you doing? Are you focused on your top 20% revenue generating things all day, every day until you get to that next level goal? Or are we like thinking about what we're going to do? No. So the answer is I got busy. I got into activity. And I would have like between 20 and 25 appointments a week. So within the 6-week mark, and you probably can't see it, but right here is my first check that I ever got. And so we started July 23rd, 2004, September 4th, 2004. I secured a client for $5,000 a month, a retainer client. That was our first client. I'm like, okay, girl, this is fun. So I did the activity and I built the plane while I flew it. because it wasn't about perfection. But what I realized, Crystal, is I was the secret weapon for clients because I'd been in a corporate umbrella as a corporate sales trainer in the personal development industry and didn't realize until I got into the real world, so to speak, what a secret weapon I was going to be for clients. So year one, I was focused on, as a lot of coaches do, is get the one-on-one retainer clients so that you can get to that six-figure mark. So year one, we made $98,853.23. Girl's got to know her numbers. That's really, really, really important. And then like 12 and a half months, we hit over 100K. Year two, I think it was 225,833, give or take some change. And then year four, for seven figures. So that didn't happen by accident. It happened and the money followed the math. So you have to know the mathematical formula, which it's not hard. It's just sometimes we get stuck in our feelings. And I am going to say that my biggest limiting belief is fear of failure. And that fear of failure was so loud for me year one. But what I understood, and this is where the internal GPS part comes in, is I understood what it sounded like, how it showed up, and how to redirect it. And that's why I became a coach, is I'm a master at that mindset piece and other things, but specifically mindset. Got to know, because it's loud. The closer you get to the goal, it's louder when you're leveling up to the next level because your limiting beliefs are trying to keep you small. And we don't need that girl. Like, she's like old news. Bye. We don't need her. So that's the answer. And it's actually simple if you know what to do.
There's so many directions I can take this in because you just shared so much goodness. But one of the things that has been like, I came across this, it might have even been yesterday, something that was posted on TikTok. And this guy was interviewing someone else that I think had a really successful podcast. I didn't really know the whole thing, but the basis of the conversation was, what was the answer to your success? And he basically said, just doing the obvious thing for an extraordinary amount of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything that you just said is that. And I think that it is so easy to see the shiny numbers, all of the success, but not realize how much like hustle it does take in the beginning to show up, to do the work, to do it over and over and over and over again, even when the evidence doesn't yet present itself.
Okay, so let's talk about that piece, because that's what I was going to say is a lot of times we are waiting to be validated. We're waiting to feel good. We're waiting for the result to show up. And that is the road to poverty. All of those things don't matter. The only thing that you've got to be focused on is your next 100 feet. And Jack Canfield talks about that in The Secret, your next 100 feet. So who am I going to reach out to? If you don't have inbound leads coming in, you've got to do the outbound outreach. And it's not fun, and it feels janky, and it feels like, oh my God, is this ever going to happen? Like, those feelings are real.
Yeah.
But we ignore them. We're on a path. We're on a path to our first 10 clients. And until such time that you have your first 10 clients, I would do nothing else other than obviously delivering for your clients, but business development. But it's the feeling piece, Crystal, and that's why that internal GPS is so important, because from the age of 0 to 4, 50% of who we think we are is being formed based on life. 5 to 9, another 30%. And then by the time we're 18 years old, 95% of who we think we are, underline that, is being formed by brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, teachers, parents, everything, just life. And then we go about thinking that's who we are. We are not. So if our limiting belief is in the driver's seat, it's going to steer us like a GPS backwards. We have to get back in the driver's seat and take ownership. And we have to have unwavering faith about our thing. Because in the beginning, not a lot of people are going to necessarily believe it for you. You have to have unwavering faith before the results show up. And this is one of the biggest mental gaps that I see, whether people are starting out or they're scaling. Because guess what? It doesn't go away when you go to do something big. It's the same process, but know what's going on.
I was literally just talking about this with an incredible group of women, of being able to show up and not just think about like the next sale, the next month, the next quarter, whatever that looks like, but to recognize and remind yourself, who are you 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? What does your business look like? And have that belief in your head that every single decision that you're making, every single move that you're making is building up towards that. And when your belief does become so incredibly unshakable, like you don't have a choice but to continue showing up, because you know. But I love also that you have this countering, more like tactical, tangible thing of like, the math works. Like, even if my mindset is like shit right now, the math works, and that's something that I can fall back on.
Always. It's a mathematical improbability, meaning it's impossible that you won't be successful. if the math is right. So how I feel about myself, all of that chatter, we call it head trash, all that head trash can coexist with you making money. It's just, so a couple things I'm going to give your audience. First one is 5-minute funeral. When you're feeling like that, give yourself a 5-minute funeral. Some people give them a 5-day funeral or a 5-month funeral. We don't have that kind of time. 5 minutes. Make it good. Jump, scream, yell, do all the things, get it out. That's actually a long time when you're doing that. And then you brush it off and you move on. Here's the other thing, Crystal. I knew year one that I needed to show up as a 6-figure version of me before I even had a client. So I asked myself, what are the qualities and characteristics of a 6-figure business owner? Okay, confident, shows up on time, does the math, it creates great results. So whatever version your clients are in or people watching right now, think about that next level version of you. Who is she? You don't have to wait for her. Be her now. And it's going to feel like you're trying on a new uniform. That's kind of the point. One of the things I hate, I'm just going to say it, I hate imposter syndrome, because when did we make it okay to not be new? You're just new and it's going to feel janky. It's going to feel weird, but if we want to get to the next level, make more money, let's do it and be her now before you have any evidence.
I mean, it's also just like a perspective shift of like, why wouldn't you want to be new? Like, why wouldn't you want the proof that you're up leveling, that you're elevating,
Right.
that you are becoming the woman that you want to become? Like that takes that death and rebirth, right? That takes letting go the mindset that you previously had, or all of the limiting beliefs, or the way that you run and operate in your business or show up in your business, to be able to take on those new habits.
Yeah.
So getting to the very, very like candid side of things, what were you actually selling at that 5K retainer?
Okay, so I was doing consulting, which I did a lot of year one. I was working with a client and his sales team. So I came in 3 times a week and completely re-engineered their business, their operations, their sales, their pricing, their offers, their mindset, and their productivity. So I did one-on-one consulting and one-on-one coaching year one. And then I realized, oh my God, I have a problem. There's only one of me. I've painted myself into the corner. And I had somebody come and ask me year 2, would you consider doing a mastermind program? But again, this was 22 years ago, 21 years ago. Mastermind programs were like, let's get together and sing Kumbaya. I'm not interested in that if it doesn't produce a result. So I created a group hybrid one-on-one group coaching program, and we still use that model today. So year 2, in order for me to scale, because there's only one of me, I can't deliver with 10, 12 clients and still do business development. So one coaching.
So all of these people that you were reaching out to, the 100 a day, that was all through the chamber, right?
Correct.
You said 18.
No, 1,200 people. 1,200 people. I'm like, girl, 18,000. What?
Got that number from 1,200 people, but you had a significant amount of, you had a pile to pick from. So what were those calls actually like? That's part one of the question. What were the sales calls like before? And I'm interested to see if you've seen quite a change in the way sales work today.
No. Okay. So I think it's really simple. So I would reach out and say, let's say I met them at a networking event. It was so great to meet you at a networking event. And I would love to, again, there was no Zoom back then. These were like in-person meetings, right? So it might be a little different today. I would love to find out more about you and your business and see how I can support you. And if it makes sense, I would love to tell you about mine. Keep it really simple. And what I would do is from a time management perspective, I'd pick one location because I didn't have an office yet, right, in year one. And it was like a Panera Bread. And I would do back-to-back appointments every hour. Boom, 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 boom. So I saved time, travel time. And it was literally, there's a 5-step process in sales. And the first one I think we're forgetting about is relationship. So I wanted to know who they were. Most of them were not going to necessarily be clients, but I was launching my brand. And you never know who they know or if they have an event that I could speak at. So I was literally just being of service to find out who are you, what are your pain points? And if it made sense, then I would set up a second appointment to have a more in-depth conversation. So I don't think sales has changed. People are people. We have to activate a reptilian brain. Ooh, this is good today. The reptilian brain inside of somebody. So they go, okay, wait, she can solve my problems. So there is a process in sales that hasn't changed. I think how we market ourselves has changed. The speed of which we can do it because of social media has changed. But at the end of the day, we all want to buy from someone that we like, we know, and we can trust. So that piece has not changed.
I love hearing that. And I agree with you. This is what I talk about all the time, that relationships are your most important business asset. And for everyone that comes up to me and is like, oh, I don't like networking. Networking doesn't work. And I'm like, you're just doing it wrong. You're having the hard conversations, or you're going in with this very transactional mindset of
Correct.
pitch everyone, as opposed to come from a place of curiosity, which you beautifully laid out in your example of wanting to get to know them as well. Because not everyone is going to be your client, but that doesn't mean that there is no relationship that can be nurtured there that can turn into something fruitful for both parties.
Yes. And here's the other thing too, is sales is an ecosystem. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make or salespeople make is they put so much pressure on themselves to fill the bottom of their funnel. We have a top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. And that's where the transaction, icky, sleazy sales thing comes up. You got to fill the top of your pipeline with enough people. So the other thing, Crystal, that I did, and I still do, is I want to have a list of my top 100. Now, it takes a minute to get there, but if you're focusing on relationship, and for us, it's transformation, it's not transaction, is filling the top of our funnel, to filling the top of our pipeline. And guess what happens? People will always be going through that ecosystem, that sales cycle. But most people, like, I need to make money, blah, blah, blah. That's the wrong tactic. What you need is more eyeballs, more visibility, and more people in the top of your funnel.
And you guys know I love talking about visibility, but I want to kind of build on this. So you're clearly going out to networking events, you're building those relationships, but that clearly would not equal 100 contacts a day. So it sounds like you were doing cold outreach as well.
Well, in the beginning, I was doing all cold outreach. So 100 calls a day, 15 to 20 appointments a week. And then obviously I got my first client. So then I backed it down to maybe like 75 calls a day. Because just because you called them doesn't mean you answer. They answered, right? Are we connected? And this is the fortunes in the follow-up. Most people do like 1 or 2 follow-ups. That's not going to work. Not going to work.
Everything that you're saying, because like that, yes. These are the things that I constantly reiterate all the time. I'm like, you can't just follow up once. It is your responsibility as a professional to follow up. Follow up until you've exhausted all options. And I can't tell you how many times opportunities have opened up, or we made a sale, or whatever that looked like, because we followed up for the 5th time, because we decided to go to another avenue. Like, if they didn't receive our emails, work with them on LinkedIn and make sure they actually got our emails. If they didn't respond to my emails, if they have a booking link, I book a call with them and say, hey, ensure that door of communication is still open, because if you didn't give me a firm no, I'm not just going to automatically assume that you're not interested. And that's what so many people do.
Because their internal GPS is pointing the wrong direction, because they want validation that it's not going to work, versus hell no, they haven't told me no. So why am I making up that it's a no? I think the experts, whoever they are, I've never met them, but between 5 and 15 follow-ups. So obviously that's not every day you're calling somebody. It's a series of things. A DM, love a good voice note. By the way, I think voice notes are underrated. Text, email, DM, all the things. So follow up.
Okay. Please have not been listening to me when I have told you to follow up multiple times. Please listen to Kandi, okay? Please listen to Kandi, because she's done it. She's proved it time and time and time again. Okay. So you started getting traction pretty quick.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think is so interesting that I'm really curious about is, in that process, you mentioned you were building the plane as you were flying it. I love that quote. That's what we should all be doing. We should just be getting our ass in the air and like making it work. What broke in that period as you started to see success? Because it sounds like you spent a lot of your time doing the outreach, serving your clients. How much of that time was actually spent on the infrastructure of your business? And when did you start seeing like, wow, I actually need to really work on this?
Okay, so my 8th or 9th month, I said to myself, I need some help. I can't do this by myself. So I hired my first assistant, and I still remember the fear of, oh my God, how can I afford to pay her? Can I continue to afford to pay her? Now, I've managed teams, so I do have a little bit of an advantage from that perspective of knowing how to train them and all the things. So I hired my first assistant. And 22 years ago, $10 an hour was a lot of money, because I do believe in valuing your people and paying them more than the market says that they deserve. So I hired her for 10 hours a week for $10 an hour. And I was so nervous. And Crystal, after 30 days, I was like, girl, where has she been all my life? How did I survive without an assistant? And so I like to run my business lean and mean in a profitable machine. And so about the time I feel like I'm going to, like, I can't take it anymore, then I bring in the next person. So I build it with intention. And so year 2, I hired a couple of coaches and I hired a salesperson. And so I built it that way. We had a very strong, solid foundation. It wasn't until my 5 unhinged events that happened around our 5-year anniversary that everything broke. So I don't know if you want to get into that, but
That was actually going to be my next segue. So this is perfect. We're clearly on the same mental timeline here.
there you
So-
go. All right. So you want me to just tell you?
4, 5, 6 year mark.
Yes.
So many things happened for you in what, a 6-month time span?
Yes.
Divorce, eviction, your business, I don't know if you want to say crumbling, but everything was just falling apart.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and share what that looked like?
Yeah, because you can't write the script. Like, it's better than any Hollywood blockbuster, honestly. Okay, so I had purchased my dream house. We're making 7 figures. Like, we were known in Arizona, like we're the top company. Like, we were looking good from the outside, and we were doing good, and we were profitable. Okay, so that's an important part of the story. And I had 100 clients, and I was speaking all the time. I had consulting clients, blah, blah, blah. So my husband at the time was also a speaker. And so I had put on an event for my clients, and I literally did not have the capacity. So I sent him to speak. And I got a call after that event from a client who was there saying, Kandi, I think you have a problem. I'm like, what are you talking about? Did something happen? Well, your husband brought his Australian mistress on stage with him. And I was like, sorry, Australian assistant. That was his mistress. I'm like, girl, what are you talking about? And she was a former cop, so she could like sniff stuff out. So I was like, okay. When you got home, I had a little convo. So how did it go? Is there anything you need to tell me? He's like, oh, no, it went great. I'm like, really? What about the blonde girl from Australia? So he never copped to it. And I said, look, here's the deal. You got 5 minutes. We're either going to go to counseling, you're going to be honest, you're going to tell me the truth, or you got to go. And so he was like, well, I don't know. I'm like, no. So he left that night. So that ended up creating a divorce. I gave him a chance, but he was like, no, he never even admitted to this day, to be honest, even though I have evidence. And when he walked out the door, $1 million house, I was making money, but half of the income for the family walked out, right? And so I was doing a loan modification, and the mortgage company sold my house at auction out from underneath me. And how I found out was I got a knock on my door, and it was one of my clients. And he goes, what are you doing here? I go, what are you doing here? I live here. He goes, well, I just bought your house at auction. And I'm sure that the blood drained out of my body. I was like completely white as a ghost. He said, no worries. Let's meet tomorrow for coffee and we'll figure this out. So everything was imploding at the same time. And then two of my staff, employees, stole our client list, quit, and left to go create a copycat coaching company. And then the recession hit. So within 30 days, 50% of my receivables were gone. So yes, all of that happened at the same time. And literally, I thought I was going to lose it. Thank God I didn't. And I thought my business was burnt to the ground. But here's what happened is I realized I was not profit proof, meaning my internal GPS, my sales, my activity, and the clone piece, the automation piece was not strong enough to hold all of those events. So that's when it broke.
I mean, you probably saw me, but like my jaw was on the floor. I don't even know like what to say to that. Like, and
right?
The fact that you're here and you came out alive and like you were bigger and better and doing more amazing things than ever is like awe-inspiring to say the least. But you mentioned profit proof. So let's bring it back to basics. What was even like your first step out of that, of like dealing with your own mental health, first of all, finding the new place to live, going through all of that. And you had your daughter at the time, right?
Yeah.
So what was the first step to get out of that and to start getting back on track?
Well, it's so funny because it's really simple. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have my world is falling apart around me, or it felt like anyways, right? I'm going to stay focused on building the business. And what's really funny, honestly, I haven't thought about this for a minute. That client that knocked on the door ended up extending and hiring me for more time and more money after because he was like, okay, let's have you stay in the house. It's beautiful. I'm going to do some tenant improvements. Would you mind staying here? So what happened is he was listening to me on the phone doing my coaching. And then he goes, oh my God, we need to add more time with my team. I want to bring you in with my whole team. So that ended up making money for me. And I just stayed focused on, okay, I want to do this different, but I need to focus on revenue. because that's why it's not profit proof. So if something big happens or your big client walks out the door and 50% of your revenue goes away, you are not profit proof. So I just started thinking about my business differently. How could I make this more sustainable? What could I automate? What could I take myself out of? What does my pipeline look like? So I focused on my top 20% revenue generating things, because cash doesn't cure everything, but when your world is imploding, it helps a lot.
So what was the shift there? What did that actually look like in terms of starting to profit proof your business and really start putting the systems in place that allow you to bring in more revenue?
So number one, we call it the scoreboard, focusing on revenue generating activities and only that. So putting blinders on, getting in front of enough people, getting longer contracts, and then taking a look at from an SOP perspective, what could we automate? Now, nowadays, it's a lot easier to automate than it was back then, but where could I take myself out of the equation so that I could focus on the thing that only I could do? So instead of doing like a 4-hour training at the beginning of a coaching contract, what could we do to automate that? So hiring more coaches was part of it. So I was only focusing on the top 20% of the business, not all of it. Because before that, I needed to be everywhere, in touch all the things. So I took a look at, okay, what's my next level and what do I have to do and how could I delegate the rest of it? So really leaning into that 80-20 Pareto principle, only focusing on my top 20%, though inside I was dying, heartbroken, all the things. I didn't listen to that.
Just sitting with that for a second. And I think we all need to be able to have those reminders of, in those hardest moments in your business and in building the dream that you have, that is your big opportunity to double down.
Correct.
And that is the easiest time to step away and say, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm giving up. But that's ultimately, that's usually the tipping point, right? Where you start really reflecting, okay, like what needs to be done differently? How much further can I push? How can I get myself out of whatever hump that you're currently in? Keep on going. This is your loving reminder. Keep on going. Okay. So we've been talking about profit proof. And now I want to switch gears to summits, because you are joining us at.
I'm so excited. I'm like, let's go.
I'm so excited. Now, I already knew I loved you, but then again, after having this conversation, I'm like, oh, your energy is just it's fire. It's phenomenal. I can't wait to hug you in person. I can't wait to have you on stage and to be able to pour this energy onto everyone. So you are doing a workshop for us. What can people expect from your workshop?
Well, they can, number one, understand why they need to be profit proof. And what does that even mean? Because I think what we were doing is we were focusing on profit building versus, do you have a solid foundation underneath you? So they're going to leave with tactical strategies that they can implement right away, but it's going to be a re-engineering of how are you running your business? Yeah. Have you ever thought of profit proofing your business? Like obviously I have, I think 40 minutes. So I would love to have all day to break each direction down, like internal GPS, sales, all the things. We're going to focus on the most tactical things that they can leave with, that they could implement right away.
Love that. And clearly you are a master networker. You're a master connector. You know how to own a room, be in a room, maximize a room. So we do have a lot of women in the network and in our community as we continue to build that have never been to conferences or summits or rooms of this caliber and are still in that season of really understanding how do they build really impactful, meaningful relationships that become the gift that keeps on giving, right? That becomes something that really gets to be nurtured and turn into long-term partnerships. So what advice do you have for the women walking into the room so that they can truly maximize their experience there?
So get in the room, bring your energy, be excited, be the one that everybody wants to meet. So light your own soul on fire, be your own hell yes before you get there, because that stands out. And then meet every single person in the room. And if you don't know who your ideal client is or ideal collaborator or ideal referral partner, learn that before you get there and make sure that you are vetting the room. And what I mean by that, whenever I go to an event, I just take a minute sometimes when I first get there and kind of feel the room, use my intention, my intuition. Where are my A's, where are my B's, and where are my C's? And by the way, this works no matter what when you're just doing regular networking. Get their information, because you can give them your Instagram, which is great, or your LinkedIn, but if you don't get their information, so you are there to capture information and to connect with people. But here's the thing. Get in the room. But what you do after the room also matters, is that follow-up piece.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I know everybody has like a digital business card, just like a little trick. If you meet 100 plus people in a room, you're not going to remember who they were. So if you meet somebody and you guys have a digital business card and they give it to you, they airdrop it to you, take a picture of it so you can remember who the person is. So maybe on a break, hey, here's who I met. Here's my A's, here's my B's, here's my C's. Back in the day, Crystal, I used to have like big manila envelopes when I went to an event, and one said A, one said B, and one said C. And we all had business cards. So I put the business cards of the A's in the A, B's in the B, C's in the C, so that when I left that event, guess what? I knew exactly what I needed to do versus who did I meet? Do I even remember? I mean, I can't remember all those people.
That's phenomenal. I love that. And I love it when people share their networking tips. I do because people we connect on LinkedIn, we connect on Instagram, whatever. I always screenshot it because then you can't always see who are your recent followers or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
With. So I always screenshot it and then go through my screenshots. And then something that I always say to people too is block out time, be intentional about blocking out time right after the events, whether that's the next day or that evening.
Yes.
So you can go down and take your notes of these are the conversations that I had. This is how I can see myself working with them, whether they're a client, collaborator, mentor, etc. So now you have so many different ways that you can really be intentional about who you're connecting with and how you're doing the follow-up. I love that. Thank you, Kandi. Thank you for sharing those. One more thing, because you and I feel like I have really high energy. I love I'm not opposed to going out there and interjecting and being in groups of women and just being a part of the conversation, but that's not comfortable for everyone. So what kind of ideas or suggestions do you have for the women that are still trying to build that muscle and comfortability with putting themselves out there in that capacity?
Okay, so let's talk about buyer types. There's 4 different buyer types, and you have to be true to yourself. I'm super high energy and I'm absolutely obsessed with what I do. So my energy is different now than it would have been 22 years ago. When I went to my first chamber event, I was so overwhelmed and so scared. And I'm sure I look like a deer with my head cut off, whatever that is. So also it's the season of business that you're in. And I'm sure when people ask me what I did, I sounded like an idiot, but you can't fast track those moments. So be who you are. So whether you are direct communication style or buyer type, then be yourself. If you're analytical, then be yourself. You need information. If you're spirited or promoter, which when I'm in speaker mode, that's my energy. Or if you're more softer side of seer, so to speak, then be that. That's okay. Don't try to be something that you're not, but be the best version of who you are, but challenge yourself to be outside of your comfort zone. We're all there to connect and create an amazing day. So don't miss the opportunity because of fear, because your internal GPS will tell you, I'm scared. Okay, so what?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I always say you get clarity by doing, and this is the doing. The doing, there is literally no way to shortcut it. You just simply have to do. And then you get better and better. You get more knowledgeable. You get a better understanding of, this is how I operate best. This is the best way that I know how to communicate with people and connect with people and convert people and whatever that looks like. Oh my gosh, amazing. Kandi, I could talk to you all day.
Let's do it. I have one more thing just really quick is when you're going to an event, don't put yourself under so much pressure to perform. Just connect with other human beings. Just connect.
Read that. They can sense your energy. And it is definitely better to be more vulnerable, be more, if you're a little bit more introverted and a little bit quieter, be more, as opposed to just trying to pretend you're someone you're not, because that's not sustainable. As the relationship continues to build, they're going to see the person that they met in that room is not actually the person that you show up in your
catfish.
Exactly. And we don't want that. We're all about authenticity here at Rolo, celebrating you in the season that you're in, really leveling the playing field so that amazing women like Kandi can come and grace us with her knowledge, but also sit right there on the sidelines with us and have the conversations that actually matter. So if you have not grabbed your ticket, seriously grab your ticket. What are you waiting for? You do not want to miss out. Kandi, you are a blessing. You are wonderful. I loved this conversation with you. Thank you for being here with me today and for saying yes to Summit.
Yes. Get your ticket. Get your ticket. I want to see you.
Can everyone connect with you?
On Instagram, 111 Network. On LinkedIn, Kandi Lee. Send me an email. I'm wherever you are, I'm there. Other than TikTok. I'm not really on TikTok. But Instagram's probably the best place. The 111 Network is our Instagram. I think you're going to post it, right?
We're going to post that. All of those links are going to be in show notes. And also a quick reminder for anyone that's an executive member within Herolo, Kandi did a phenomenal workshop for us a few months back, and that recording is in the workshop replay vault. As an executive member, you get access to all of the workshop replays that we have. You definitely have to check it out if you have not checked it out yet. It was on a lot of the things that we talked about today in terms of profit-proofing your business and bringing in more revenue. And that's something that we all need as business owners. So Kandi, thank you again so much. Cannot wait to see you from September 12th in the Bay Area. And we'll chat soon.
Awesome.